Joey, will you do a roll call, please?
Rowski. Here. McLeod.
Here.
Ogle. Here. Montgomery.
Here.
And Ruddick. Here.
So has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes from the last meeting, which was a while ago? And if there's any additions or corrections or anything that needs to be changed or deleted?
I'll move that the minutes of June 20th, 2024 be approved as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So do we have any public comment unrelated to items on the agenda tonight? Okay, so before you begin, we just ask that you stand over at the podium and that you speak with the commissioners, not anyone out in the public here with you. Just speak with us and try to keep it to 3 minutes.
3 minutes? I
Okay,
have handouts. Do I give them to the secretary who's taking notes?
sure, you can.
I can hand them to the board,
Sure.
and then we just need a copy for our records.
We have a microphone over there, so
Yeah.
if you don't mind, it's just easier for us to have a
No, I don't mind going.
focus on you. Thank you.
Yes. No, I can maybe without it.
Is this the same thing?
Yeah. mhm.
Okay.
Here's the front and back.
Okay.
And then when you reach the podium, if you could just tell us your first and last name, your address, and your phone number, and just slow enough that we can have it recorded.
Sure.
Thank you.
Lisa Moore, 602 Oak Street, Big Rapids, Michigan. And right across from the hospital, the corner of Oak and Winter is where we live. Phone number, 863-640-1018. Do you need anything else from me before I start?
Nope.
Okay. I just want to start with opening remarks, which is I would like to begin by saying this is not a personal attack against a neighbor, but we bought a home here in Big Rapids about 4 years ago, and there were no businesses in the area when we bought it, and we don't want any businesses in the area where we bought it. So we're concerned about one that's next door to us. So we would like to say that's not a personal attack against our neighbors. We're just concerned citizens in a residential neighborhood that would not want a business next to a residential home. To the best of our knowledge, do you want me to leave the name of the person out before I say it?
That would be up to you.
Okay. What we understand is that the neighbor's name is Seth, and that when they bought the house, the young lady that lives there too had said that he was working on starting a business, a dog grooming business. So we were watching it transpire, the house next door, into a dog grooming business over a period of 3 or 4 months. We called and talked to a few people. What are their two names, Greg, the two people?
Michelle Stanger and Joey.
Okay, several times of our concerns what's happening next door to us. So he started, I guess, on Facebook. You have copies of it, that it started somewhere around, I think I have June 19th of this year, because when we originally spoke to Joey, he was saying we need proof that he was advertising a business. So I searched on Facebook and found it. So in the course of a few months, we noticed the transformation of the home into a dog grooming business. We made several calls to the city detailing our concerns about the fence being built in the backyard and remodeling the garage for a dog grooming business. At first, we were told they didn't have a permit to build the fence or the backyard, and then we were told later that he had a permit. And then we added our concerns about the dog grooming business. As time went on, no one was giving us information to move forward to stop the neighbor or having the dog grooming business stopped. We finally got a hold of Michelle Stenger, I believe, who my husband met in person, and he laid out his concerns to her when he saw her in person. my husband Greg also got in contact with Perry, a building inspector, which we actually had to find on our own, about the pipe sticking out of the back of the garage, which is next door to us. We didn't know if it was a fire burning stove or whatever, which there's pictures on the back of the paper about that. And then I think he talked to Greg a couple of times about it, and they did an inspection. I don't know the outcome about it. But moving forward, we just want to not have a dog grooming business next to our home, because we didn't buy into a residential area to have a business next to where we live. And that's our concern.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you bringing it to our attention.
It's up to the board on whether you want staff to comment where we're at.
Well, staff, do you have any comments?
Sure. So, once we were notified and had some proof of the business going on, we sent the letter to the property owner. We told him, like, finish out what reservations you currently have, don't book any more. I had about a week worth. We haven't seen any indication that he's still doing the dog grooming business at this point, but without being there all the time, we really can't verify that in any way. He hasn't made any posts since we've had that conversation with him that I've seen. He last week dropped off an application for a special use that will be coming before the board next month. Public notice for that meeting hasn't gone out yet because there's still time for other people to file. And then once that deadline for filing goes, we will send public notice for like special use meeting. So, our knowledge, he's not currently operating, though he was operating in the past. The fence permit he got after we contacted him about making a fence. And we notified the building department about the mechanical apparatus sticking out because we don't have jurisdiction over building in the or building inspections in the city. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So we're still working on it, and he's coming in next month to see what his chances are.
I appreciate that.
What part of the zoning ordinances might we be looking at?
It would be under home occupation.
Just so I can at least brief myself before.
Right, and we'll do a staff report right up on it like we always do and kind of give you the sections of the ordinance that relate to home occupation so you guys can have a thorough review.
Okay, I appreciate that.
That's good.
All right, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you letting us know how you feel. Okay. So we are going to go on to our public hearing. An extension request from Consumers Credit Union, 900 Water Tower Road. Is there anyone here to represent them? Yes? Hi, if you'll do the same thing and just let us know your first and last name, your address of where you're coming from, and your phone number.
All right, I am Nick Lukes from Bosch Architecture. My phone number is 269-321-5151. I'm here from Kalamazoo today, so.
Did you get all that, Joey?
I think so.
Need anything repeated?
Bosch Architecture.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so do you want me to talk first, or do you want, Michelle, I know you wrote a staff report about this too, so what order do you want to go in here?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, I will start. I was here a year ago. We got site plan approval for the Consumers Credit Union at the corner of Perry and Water Tower Road. At that time, they were in process of purchasing the property. They wanted to make sure everything would work. They had full intention to build at that time, but because of market conditions, this is a new market for consumers. They're in the Grand Rapids area. They were looking to expand a little further north into Big Rapids, Mount Pleasant. So they purchased the property after we got the site plan approval, but wanted to hold off a little bit till they can get a couple other sites in the area to kind of do them all at the same time. This would be a regional building, and then there'd be smaller buildings, say, like in Mount Pleasant and other surrounding areas, Cadillac. So right now, I'm in front of you to just request an extension of the site plan approval, just because we haven't started yet, and it expires in 3 days, so.
Good call. So do you wanna give any,
I would-
share?
Just note that the applicant requested for a year extension, and by our ordinance, they're allowed to request up to 18 months. And the threshold for the planning commission is, whether significant, suitable progress for the specified project has been made, and there's multiple ways to look at what is suitable progress for any kind of development. They have purchased the property prior to the hearing. The original application, if you remember, it was still in Delaney's name. So whether or not the board considers that a suitable progress is in your discretion.
Does anybody have anything to say about that? I don't have a problem with it at all.
It's very similar to the last one that we heard.
That's my exact thought, yeah.
So, I mean, they had purchased the property, that was their significant progress. I would consider this to be the same. So they purchased it after that, so. Sounds like they're still planning on doing it. 12 months, that'd be great.
And I fully understand if something doesn't happen in 12 months, we do have to resubmit and go through the process again. This isn't the first time I've done this for consumers. Actually, when we went into Grand Rapids, we got site plan approvals in 2008 and didn't build the first building until 2013, just because 2008 was at the bottom of when everything was going crashing, so. But they've told me they have every intent to get up this way, so.
Are we all in agreement? Do we need to do a roll call or anything for that? We do? Okay, so Joey, if you'll do a roll call vote.
Need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I need a motion. Does someone wanna make a motion?
I did not provide you a motion in the packet. But it would be fairly basic.
Can I ask one more question? I didn't realize like the 12-month, 18, like we were allowed, because most places are 12 months. Can I request 18 months now at the board meeting?
It's out of, I mean, you're in the public hearing process, so.
Okay. Are we okay with that? I haven't closed it down, so.
My only concern is that it was publicized as a 12-month, right? Extension or not.
I think it just said an extension request. Try to keep the details
Okay,
somewhat limited.
all right.
I don't, if you want to stay with 12 months, it just, I didn't realize we could go up to 18 months because most municipalities are 12 months, and it's my fault for not reading your ordinance clearly before writing the letter.
Well, why don't I close this if that's okay? Can I do that? Is that all right? Is there anyone else here who wants to speak on this for or against? Okay, so I'm gonna just close it down and let the commissioners talk about it again, just make sure we're good with it. I was kinda hoping it was gonna be 12 months, sorry, but I'm gonna let you all tell me what you think. Are you wanting
I don't
18?
have any problem with 18 months.
Okay,
He's requesting it, so.
And I will say, the reason I'm asking for 18 months now is I didn't realize construction had to be completed by the end of that 18 months. Like, it's a 9-month build, the building is, so we would have to start in December in order to get completed by the 12 months, and I don't think that's achievable right now.
fine with it?
I'm fine with it.
Fine with it? You're
Yeah,
good?
I'm fine with it. We just did the same thing with another one that, showed that they purchased the property and everything, so.
All right, well, I still need someone to make a motion that we're gonna go ahead and extend their application.
Go ahead.
I don't have wording, so I'm gonna say, and Joey will write it better, that I make a motion to approve the 18-month extension for the property located at 900 Tower Road for Consumer Credit Union.
I'll second.
Perfect.
Sounds good. Yep, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Borowski?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Vogel? Yes. Montgomery?
Yes,
And Reddick.
okay, so That has passed and gone through, so we're good there. Gonna move on to general business. We have a recommendation of draft master plan, which I think Ms. Stanger's gonna give us a briefing on.
I have a really brief PowerPoint so that it doesn't get too long. Hold on, so I can get.
My wife asked if I thought I'd be home before 10.
If you want to read the 155-page document, which I recommend that you do, because there's lots of good information for the planning commission in there, and our steering committee worked really hard on trying to make sure that, you know, we were open and honest or had an open process for everyone. And if you have questions on it, just interrupt me at any time, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. So the first, we embarked on beginning this master plan process probably in August of last year. Well, it was before that, probably June of last year. And one of the important aspects that we really focused on with our consultants was having it very community input process. And so, and how we did that is we sent out a survey to, you know, all well, we didn't send it to them, but we put it out on Facebook, we put it in the newsletter, I think Steve talked about it on the radio at one point. We tried to get the word out as much as we could that there was a survey for our master plan, and to ask people in the community, whether you lived in the township or the city, but especially city people, to please respond to the survey so we can get some input. We also did 2 pop-up events, one at the farmers market and one at Summerfest, where the consultants had questions set up and boards set up to where people could like draw on and mark their answers on and give ideas out. And then they did a vote with your pennies, which is kind of like a vote with your tax dollars thing, of where they would wanted to see more investment in the community from. And so we also did neighborhood meetings where we selected, and we had 6 different neighborhoods: the hospital neighborhood, the northeast residential neighborhood, along with the industrial complex, downtown in Ferris, the southwest residential neighborhood, and Perry Avenue, because they kind of are related. We had struggled getting that kind of area in a way, but that was the best we could come up with. The northwest residential neighborhood was State Street, and then the east side residential neighborhood along with the commercial neighborhood on the east side. And so we picked, there was like 10 to 14 people at those meetings, and we had sit-down conversations with them led by our consultants about issues that they see in their neighborhoods or concerns that they have or things that they think are great, and just tabulated all of that information. And we have we got lots of great information from them, and so that got compiled into this report. And then we also did a couple charrettes for bike walk roll, housing we focused on, Maple Street development, as well as the downtown. And so we invited players that have property in those areas or people who have interest in those things, and invited them into the community or into our departments, and we had conversations about, you know, what they would like to see, or what do they think we're missing, and, you know, all those kind of things. I think at one point we were building with Legos along Maple Street to get an idea of how people wanted, how, you know, people who own property along that area wanted to see development. So we tried to gather information in unique ways that kind of got people talking more than just having a sit-down conversation. We had multiple steering committee meetings, and then we did a public open house where we presented the information of what we found, which was just last week. Yeah. And so then we came up with the consultants gathered all of that information. We have a community engagement report if anyone wants to see like the specific results from each program that we had. And then we also, they speak to some of the findings they found in here, the big ones that stuck out or kept getting repeated in the process.
I didn't understand that.
Oh, that damn phone. Sorry, Joey. So then they compiled that information. We provided them information about our infrastructure and our broadband information and internet and, you know, all the parks information, all the stuff that we have on file, and they compiled that into our master plan. So our master plan is laid out as an introduction, demographics, which is our housing and population data, employment, income levels, the natural features that are featured in Big Rapids, what our community facilities are, and then I'm not going to go over all of that information because it's lengthy and it sets the base for what the future is going to be, but it's not. We could probably spend our time on better things. So what they found is in the next couple chapters, after gathering all that information and analyzing it, which is our non-motorized planning. So there's a chapter on locations and improvements, suggestions to trails, sidewalks, and bike systems throughout town. And then they wrote a chapter on goals and objectives, land use, which is future land use, current land use and future land use, and then a chapter on implementation, which is helpful to city staff, planning commission, city commissioners on now we have this great plan, how do we implement it and who's involved in doing that. So that's just a general overview of what the plan is. The highlights from the non-motorized plan section or the chapter. They talked about things that we do really well. We have a great trail system throughout the parks that connect a lot of our parks. And it connects the north part of Big Rapids, not all the way to the south, but to a good south chunk of the city. We work really hard on trying to improve our sidewalk connections, especially around the schools. They've put a lot of focus on. So making our town more walkable where we can. Things that we came out that we can improve on are safety of key intersections. Key intersections that came up a lot was Maple Street on the east side, State Street at Maple, which, I mean, I'm sure most of us know, like, that's not a very safe place to cross. And then some other ones that probably some people aren't as familiar with. Another one that came up was as you're going from the trail by the Gypsy Nickel and Tioga, getting across to Swede Hill, because of the hills there is a little bit dicey sometimes. Connecting the east side of the Muskegon River to the west side of the Muskegon River. We have one pedestrian crossing that's extremely safe, being the pedestrian bridge, but that's really the only extremely safe pedestrian-friendly spot to cross. So that came up as what we could improve on. Improving bike lanes and bike access along streets. The discussion came up a couple of times about, is there a way we can use alleyways for improved bike connection, because they're not driven on as much by vehicles, so is that a safe way to maybe improve non-motorized planning? Connecting trail users to the downtown, that was mostly about the White Pine Trail and how to get visitors who are coming along the White Pine Trail into our downtown. And then connecting the east and west side of State Street to to facilitate safer crossings. So those are just some of the highlights from that plan. There's a lot of maps in that plan with points for safer intersections, safer roadways, things like that. The next chapter is the goals and objectives. And they started the chapter with community priorities and desires derived from community engagement sessions. So these are the 4 big things they heard a lot about during our public input sessions. Reinvestment and redevelopment in different neighborhoods, filling vacant spaces, underdevelopment of parcels, and improving neighborhoods were a lot of the top priorities that came out. Housing, the discussion was a lot about the need for more housing and affordable housing, which is a nationwide discussion going on right now. And then survey results for the type of housing, because one of the questions they talked about was which type of housing would you be interested, showed support for single family housing, which is what you think of in a typical single family housing, but then also attached single family houses, townhomes, and in some areas, tiny homes. Now, they, in the plan, they get more detailed about which areas, which things could be appropriate. But in general, it was more homes, different types of homes. Non-motorized recreation infrastructure, we kind of talked about that with the mobility plan. More activities along the river, more urban walkable neighborhoods came up a lot. And then a lot of people like the sense of community that Big Rapids creates, you know, why they chose to live here. We all chose to live here, so I think we know them. Close to employment, recreational opportunities, safe people and sense of community, natural beauty, and the pride people take in their neighborhood. There's 8 different sections in our goals and objectives. So these are goals, like long-term goals for the community that are over probably the next 10 to 20 years that people would like, that the steering committee developed, that they think respond to the public engagement that we received. So there's housing, community and economic development, public utilities and services, transportation, parks and recreation, natural resources, community and culture, and cooperation and coordination. So all of those topics each have about 4 to 6 goals listed in the master plan. And then each one of those goals have anywhere from 1 to 5 objectives. And the objectives, so it's, you can think of it as like a tiered system. The objectives allow for the city and the community to reflect on the purpose of the goal as a whole, and then also achieve smaller bites of success, so that you can break it down in smaller chunks to reach that goal. And sometimes the goals might contradict each other, and so the objectives are there to kind of give you an idea or a thought process on, is this the right goal that we're trying to achieve, or are we trying to achieve this goal? And some of it's going to depend on where you're talking about in the city. Then probably one of the more important chapters is the land use chapter. So this chapter provides a vision for the future land use and zoning decisions in Big Rapids. This is probably the chapter that the Planning Commission will look at the most, because in this chapter they took a map and we did a future land use of what we hope uses will be in the future. That sounds, what we hope will be developed in the future in Big Rapids. And one thing that was unique in how they did it as you go through it is that, let me just show you a picture of it because it makes more sense. So it's unique from our master plan now. So for each desired land use, low density, medium density, residential, whatever they decided, they broke it down into important concepts for that land use and gave some direction to the planning commission and the city commission about what that land use is supposed to be about. Then they gave some information about what kind of land uses are desired in that section. And then they related it to the zoning ordinance and what districts could be appropriate for that future land use. So I think that's probably more helpful than our future land use has been in the past, because one of the hard things to get your head around is how land use relates to zoning. Because they're two different things, but they definitely have a relationship. And so I think that section especially will help the planning commission kind of understand, and the city commission and community members understand the connection between the two, and give you some guidance when you're trying to make decisions on proposals before you. No, wrong one. They also picked, we as the city picked 3 different areas in the community that were focus areas for us, that we saw an opportunity for future development. One is the Housing Commission property that is behind Mechanic Street, where they just are in the process of building out, and what we had a lot of conversation about what would be a good development for that property. How can we make it a wonderful residential community to live in, and provide housing and different types of housing and make it affordable. So that was one of our focus areas. And then the other focus area was off of Fuller behind Ridgeview, which there's about 40 acres there that is currently wooded property, and what's appropriate for that area. It's kind of a unique property. It's got very close to Perry, very close to commercial, but also right next to a existing nice residential neighborhood. So how do we kind of blend that use to make it so that the residents are still enjoying their neighborhood and we're seeing some growth. And then the other one was a property that it's been purchased since, but is along the river that could be a beautiful development one day. So we focused on those 3 areas and had lots of discussions in our groups, or in our charrettes and that wasn't in our surveys, in our charrettes and our neighborhood meetings on what they would like to see in those areas. There was lots of emphasis in those focus areas on more diversity of housing in Big Rapids. Then we get to the implementation chapter, which is the how and who of the master plan. So it explains the changes and policies needed to reach our goals, as well as what parties get involved in those changes and policies. Not all of them are city related. I mean, they're all city related, but not all of them are only city departments. Some of them involve the housing commission. Some of them, involve fire. So there's involvement from different aspects of the community to get to those goals. And then we categorize action items by priority and laid out timeframes for each one of the implementation strategies. The ones that are listed as highest priority are this plan update, a zoning ordinance update, and then to also support residential development. So that's kind of like a quick and dirty overview of the master plan, because it's 155 pages. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
I would just like to comment after reading through this, I never had any idea so much went into this master plan. There's a lot there.
There is a lot of information, and I didn't send you the community engagement information, but if you want it, I will gladly send it to you, because that document is also about 100 pages, and the information that you can glean from looking, what people want in the community and what things they would like to see is very, very interesting, and they capture it very well in the master plan, but it's just kind of interesting to see different ideas that have come up from all the community involvement.
Does anybody else have any questions for Michelle?
Yes, I have a question and a comment. So I was active in the number of meetings that are either invited to or were open to the public. And so if I understand what you said, all that information that you've gathered in those, from my 5 meetings, and the charrettes and other activities, all went to the steering committee?
They did.
And so this is the recommendation of the steering committee?
So the steering committee reviewed the final draft before we went to the public open house last week. And they reviewed it, made some edits that they thought were necessary or didn't capture or word it just perfect. And then they recommended the draft that you have before you to the planning commissioner to be ready to go to the go through the public process, the second half of the public process. And so what the board is tasked with tonight is to determine if they're okay with the review that the steering committee did with the draft plan, and recommend, if you are okay with it, to recommend approval of the draft plan to the city commission to be released for public review. And and then the city commission will look at the same thing. I'll give the same presentation to them or similar presentation to them at their next meeting. And then once they give the go-ahead, by law, we have certain people we have to send this to, all the neighboring townships, the neighboring counties within so many miles, anyone that touches our borders. We send them a copy of our master plan or email them a copy of it. And and the public also has 63 days to review the master plan and make any kind of comment that they want. During that 63 days, we'll have a public hearing, or maybe after the 63 days, we haven't worked out exactly how we're gonna time that. With the planning commission, where people can come in and provide comments. And then after the 63 days, depending on the number of comments, the steering committee may reconvene and review the comments if there's significant amount, and decide how they want to handle the comments and if they want to change the plan at all based on the comments or not. And then it will come back to the planning commission for a final recommendation of approval. And then it goes back to the city commission after your recommendation for final adoption. So we're hoping like January, February-ish.
I have a lot of questions, things that I don't quite understand, and I don't know when the appropriate time is to ask that. Is that something I should meet with you?
Are they questions like there's things you don't necessarily understand, or are they questions of things you think should be changed?
My understanding.
Your understanding.
I'm not sure that they should be changed.
Okay. I'm happy to meet with anyone about the master plan. I've read it 3 times now, and so I'm happy to meet with anyone, public or on my board, you know, to go over any of your questions with you.
For some time, may I continue?
Yeah.
For some time, the redevelopment ready community program has been something the city has tried to achieve. How does this fit into that program? Is this plan have the adequacy of being part of the
Part of the
part of the
redevelopment
end, getting us to
program.
the end, wherever that is, and maybe you could talk about where are we at
Yeah.
in that program, and what does it mean to the city?
So the redevelopment ready program is a state initiative to have communities get themselves ready for redevelopment. Make sure you've gone through your zoning ordinance, you've gone through your processes make sense, they operate in a timely manner, those kind of things. One of the aspects of redevelopment ready communities is that your master plan can only be 5 years old. If it's more than 5 years old, then you either need to do an update or you need to do a rewrite. The city's original master plan was in 2012. They did an update in 18 with the changes that are going on in the culture since 2012. The city felt like it was better to do a rewrite than an update. And so that's where we're at. The redevelopment ready communities so they look at our master plan, the state agency that runs that, they review our master plan and they look at it, and they've been emailed drafts throughout the process. They don't really comment on the goods and the bads and what they'd like to see change, as long as you're hitting some of, you have a future land use map. It has another thing we'll get with this towards the end of the process is they'll audit our zoning ordinance to tell us like basic areas that we need to change in order to meet our goals in the master plan. And then that's up to us on whether, how we handle that or what we do with it. So that's one of the requirements of the redevelopment ready community, is that when you do a master plan update, you also do the zoning audit. So they're involved, and this will help us get to the redevelopment ready community, but it's not the reason that we're doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you have a matrix to help us in the next few years that would show us how the master plan is going? Is there a checklist that we'll be working on, or how do you see the implementation process once it's approved?
So I think there isn't one provided. That's something that we could work on developing as a checks and balances of how we're doing on the master plan, and I'd be happy to start putting something like that together. I don't know if you want it adopted with your master plan, because anytime you make updates to your master plan, you have to go through this whole process and the 60-day review that we just went through. It might not take as long because you're not doing the whole plan, but like if you want to change something, we have to open it up to public review for 63 days, which is cumbersome for changes to a spreadsheet to help track that kind of stuff. So I think it's a great idea to help us stay on task.
Just kind of like a follow-up? Is that what you're thinking, like a way to follow up on it?
You've got goals and objectives. You'd like to be able to measure how you're doing, and I guess that's future.
No, I think that's a great idea that we could start working on.
Thank you.
I think that's a great idea.
Anything else?
Can I comment? Can I comment?
Of course.
I was part of the process as well. I was really impressed with how data-driven that was, and a lot of the data being public solicitation. And the cooperation and unity in this project was different than we've seen in other local projects, and it was very encouraging to see that.
That's nice. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
good to
it
hear.
was nice to see the public at those charrettes and actually participating.
For sure. You need that. So, does anyone else have any other questions? So, can I close this hearing on you? Or no, I don't need to?
You don't need to, cause it's a business item,
So
so
we can just talk amongst ourselves?
you can just, yeah. And then if you're inclined to make a motion,
Yeah.
I'm happy to help you get the wording of that.
Okay. I think everything looked great. I was super impressed with the master plan. I think that our city's pretty lucky to have so many people be involved and work so hard on it. Try to really cover all the bases and,
I was actually surprised at how readable it was. Like, it was very easy to kind of get through. I was like, okay, here we go, this is a lot.
right?
But there was a lot of good information, and if you're invested in the city, there was a lot of good stuff in there that
Yeah,
kind of, I was surprised by some of as much of the bike lane stuff as there was, but, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I thought it was really great. It's pretty informative, very detailed. So I don't have any problems with it being recommended to go on. Does anybody else wanna comment on that?
I make a motion to
Recommend
recommend the master plan to
the
be.
draft.
The draft, thank you. Approval for the draft plan to be shared with the public to the city commission.
Support.
Do you take roll call for that?
We need roll call.
All right,
Kowski,
Yes.
McLeod,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
Montgomery,
yes.
and Ruck.
The next item on your agenda is the, update of projects. I think last time we talked, it's been a while, June, we were working on Big Rapids Products building had been done and completed, but they hadn't started doing some of their outside work that was required by the site plan. Their fence has been installed. I don't know if you guys drive by that area, it looks nice, they did a nice job. So the fence has been installed. I think there's still some landscaping that they're working on. It wasn't installed last time I drove by. So they're still working on getting that, but once they have that landscaping, and they should be up to par on that site plan and, ready to hopefully move on to a next project in the community.
It looks good.
Huh?
It looks good over there.
Yes, the grass coming in has really
I'm
helped.
glad it all came in.
And the master plan was our other big project of the summer. So I don't really have any other updates besides those two.
Okay.
Unless there's anything you guys have questions on.
Do you know if there's a opening date for Christie yet?
Christ Oil will be here next month to ask for an extension, a small extension. I think it will be. My understanding is they're having trouble getting something that they need to move on to the next step. I heard that it was underground storage tanks, but I have no idea. But they sent a letter to me asking for an extension, and we'll be at your next meeting to discuss it. They told me someone would be there, so.
So do we have any unscheduled business? Anything to discuss? No? You do?
Bylaws.
I poked the lawyer about them, and he responded that he would look at them, and that was last month, and I haven't heard from him.
Thank you.
So, but I keep reminding him.
Okay. Someone may make a motion to adjourn this meeting? I think we should adjourn. Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Thank you. I'm gonna close this meeting at 7:20.